When it comes to classic racing, is there any more classic circuit than this one? There's a reason why you race twice around the clock here, and that reason is quite simple. This is a legendary circuit full of legendary consequence that comes from how we run. Normally, we break up the long Mulsanne straight here into 3 sections, but today we do not. We run it as one full blast from Tetra Rouge over to Mulsanne. Welcome to the Circuit Day 24 Heures du Monde. Welcome here to one of the great circuits that the world produces, and there's a reason why this track, beyond many others, is simply put legendary. And speaking of legendary, it is your classic Lotus Grand Prix, Lotus 79s, and it's with us here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Jake Sperry. Alongside me in the booth for today's action will be Alex Goldschmidt, as Daniel Costello sits in the director's chair, and he'll be using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But when we sit down, we talk about this track and what it means. This is one of the fastest circuits out there and one of the most legendary when it comes to each and every single corner, steeped in legacy, history, and folklore. This lives and breathes the very essence of racing. If you're here for the first time, let's get an understanding of this track with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The 2 turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tetra Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why.
It's one of those circuits where it's a tale of 2 cities, as Charles Dickens would put it. It's a circuit that has a lot of top speed when you go through the first part from about turn 1 to turn 13. It's a completely different track when you hit Indianapolis over to the Porsche curves. Alex, simply put, this is one of the most amazing tracks ever out there that could possibly be created, and you can't design this one anymore.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, what can you say about Le Mans? Nothing apart from spectacular. Speeds over 200 miles an hour from turn 10 to turn 11 when they start hitting the brakes heading into Mulsanne. This is going to be fast. It is going to be frantic. It is going to be technical when you get to Indianapolis and then go into the iconic Ford chicanes heading onto the start-finish straight. This is a true test. And more to the point, it is a track that everyone, no matter who you are, a fan, a commentator, a broadcaster, whoever in motorsport, you have a love and a passion for this circuit.
You absolutely do, and if you race this for the first time, you just truly get that awe-inspiring sense of what has come before you and what you need to bring in order to be at your best around here. It's a game which we look at here with the Classic Lotus Grand Prix series and say, well, how does the championship look into this one? The answer is pretty much all wrapped up in the F1 standings with a nice, neat bow. The drop rounds as they stand mean that Andreas Henkel, who is not here today, has got it all under lock and key over Pauli Partanen, with Togo Hisada finding himself in third. It's then a good scrap out there for 4th position with Jerno Frietscher, Mikko Leno and Michael de Turk 4th, 5th and 6th. Ross Banfield finds himself 7th with Jacob Reed in 8th, ahead of Kimmo Villiakainen in 9th position, and Nick Thyssen tied with him on points for 9th, but we'll call him 10th for that. But Alex, F2 is still very much wide open as it stands.
Yes, Jake, Ryan Turcotte leads by an advantage of just 40 points ahead of Mike Christopher Jr. with a couple of rounds remaining. Thomas Silbernagel and Josephine Becker ran at the top four, covered by just a spread of 52 points, which means that there's still pride up for grabs. Matthew Cockham rounds out the top five ahead of Philipp Kuhnhardt, with Luke Raspedic, Janne Lehmann, Mark Sebastian and Miguel Morland rounding out the top 10 in the standings there. But yeah, I mean, I was keeping an eye on things over when we had round 9. But also the team standings. It's still up for grabs. It's so close between Parmalat and McLaren at the moment, Jake.
Yeah, it really is. Just those 25 points and they can come and go very, very quickly. The Vorsteiner Arrows find themselves in third, and they're in their own scrap right now with Ligier Gitanes. They're the team of Paul Williams and Keith Herner, so it's worth keeping an eye out there on that. Surtees find themselves fifth with the Tissot Ensign team in sixth of Oberschlack and Cunningham. It's then Volta Wolf who find themselves seventh, Ferrari in eighth, TVR Racing Knight and the John Player Special Team Lotus, Jean-Francois Boscus and Janne Lehmann making their way as the top 10 goes. But if you're here for the first time and you don't quite know how we're racing, what the rules and parameters are, well, here they are for you. It's round 11 of 12, just the 11 laps that they'll race today around this track. They're doing 3-minute 20 lap times, so no shocks that they're taking that long in order to put those times in. If they crash it, there's no way to get back in, so there's no spare cars available for them. And as with every iRacing official race out there, drive-through penalties come through at 17 instant points. Disqualification is at 25. So that's what they've got to navigate their way around with. It's going to be an interesting qualifying session because they're going to be right up against it to get their 2 laps in on the board. They only have 8 minutes to set them and a shortened out lap to get their lap sorted. They set them off just on the exit of Maison Blanche to make sure that they can get those 2 laps sorted and in. And I think the most interesting thing will be the F2 Championship because of the way that it's split here today, Alex. The key is going to be only 2 drivers from the F2 Championship inside the top 10 are actually here. The leader, Ryan Turcotte, and 5th in the championship in Philipp Kuhnhardt.
Yeah, Ryan's currently running P12 as we head into the last 2 minutes and 40 of qualifying. It is a track where you cannot leave anything to chance. There's hardly any runoff areas, especially when you're going down the main Mulsanne straight, as again we hear the wonderful Lotus 79 roar. We're going to hear them at 5th gear, full revs, 200 plus miles an hour down this long back straight. I mean, this circuit measures over 13.5 kilometers, 31 turns. It's been around for over a century. And more to the point, here is Pauli Partonen. He's currently P6 at the moment. His best effort, a 3:22.483. And that is 2 seconds off the man who's currently striving for pole position, one of the 2 drivers that had dramas at the Red Bull Ring 2 rounds ago. Michael de Turk is leading the way on a 3:24.54, nearly 4 tenths ahead of Pat Labrosse.
Yeah, de Turk's had a really good opening lap, but Pauli Partonen here knows that he's spending over 75% of the lap with that right foot planted to the floor. You might as well put a brick down there if you want at certain sections of this track. But into the Porsche curves, he will go on his 2nd lap attempt at 230 kilometers an hour through the first one, dipping to 222 through the second, up at 240 but braking to 228, and now you've got to hit the brakes here to 190 because now you hit Maison Blanche, and this section of the lap, passing the karting circuit on the right hand side and dancing away to the final 2 sections out there, the Ford Chicane and the Réaccourdement, which is your run back onto this racing track through the final chicane and looking to try and mastermind what is a very good 2nd lap out there. It looks magnificently quick because that is almost 4 seconds quicker than anybody else, but it's beaten by Ross Banfield by 3 tenths.
That is incredible how much the pendulum swing happens. And now Kimmo Villiakainen goes to within 2 tenths on his attempt. Here's Gunnar Fritzsche, who's currently running down all the way down in 15th. But it looks like it's a good sector number 2. He's quicker than pretty much everybody else, including Michael de Turk. Where is this going to put him? It's going to put him 8th.
Yeah, that's got him down on the 4th row. Philipp Kuhnhardt, by the way, who's in the F2 standings, he's 7th. right now. So he's looking at that going, what a great qualifying for me. JB Masada just coming over the line, and that puts him up into the top 10. I think Kevin Parrish is the last driver who could have set a time on the board and has just found his way over the line then. So that will pretty much be that. Just the one non-qualifier then, as they will look to take themselves to the grid. But it is a little bit topsy-turvy because you had to be at your level best to find the times. But it will be car number 3 on pole position, Ross Banfield, a 3:16.380. Kimmo Villiakainen, a former champion in this series, is going to be alongside him on the front row. Star-studded on row 2 as Pauli Partanen has Michael de Turk for company, with Timothy Reed in 5th and JD Rodriguez, who can go hot and cold. He looks hot today in 6th position. It's then Philip Kunhardt who starts in 7th along with Jerno Fritzsche, the legend that he is, in 8th. Olivier Verhagen is there in 9th, and he's followed up with JB Masada, who rounds out the top 10 of the field. We'll go back to row 6 where Ricardo Ruiz finds himself with Nick Thyssen. Dylan Freckleton is in 13th place with Marc Oroz in 14th. It is then Gabri Martinez who is there in 15th and has Connor Tolman, and not quite a Tolman, in 16th position. Your F2 Championship leader Ryan Turcotte had a frowny face when he joined the server. He didn't really want to be in top split, but that's where he is. He's 17th with Peter Konechny in 18th, along with Javier Mosquera and Marco Televsky rounding out the top 20 of this field. Radoslav Zhukovsky is 21st along with Kevin Parrish. Pat Labrosse could only manage 23rd after he couldn't get a second lap time in. 2nd to 23rd shows you how strong the second laps were. There is Heike360 ES on Twitch out there. Xavier Sanchez, big in the Iberian streaming community. He is 24th with Andre Kalinescu in 25th, and Daniel Gallis not setting a time, electing to go from the back. It's going to be an interesting race with 20 seconds from the start of the race here, Alex, but the key here is those like Kevin Parrish, they have to have a turn before they start.
Yeah, and also when you've got the battle between Philip Kunhardt and Ryan Turcotte, I mean, Turcotte's all the way down in 17th. He's 10 places away from his nearest rival as we're set and ready for 11 laps of this fantastic 13.535 circuit.
What a start. Pauli Partanen's got an absolute monster getaway here off the line. Banfield is swarmed down to 4th. Villiakainen is going to fight him every single stage of the way. Michael de Turk had a great start as well. Wide line taken by Pauli as he now slides through the corner, balks each other. 1, 2, 3, all coming together, skirting across the main bit is Michael de Turk. He'll probably have a slowdown penalty. He's got to try and get rid of and serve, but a frantic start at the front of the field, and is busy down towards the virage, and the next big S that comes along into play here at the Tete Rouge S's, and then Tete Rouge corner itself, side by side they go as they now run for the first time. Nick Thyssen getting the move on Verhagen.
Yeah, and more to the point, well, Ryan Turcotte has dropped a place. Philip Kunhardt also drops a place, but there's still 10 cars between them as we ride with Philip Kunhardt, who's trying to go wheel to wheel for the briefest of moments with Gernot Fritzsche in the battle for P7. Kalinescu's got past Talevsky.
Oh, big one for his leader! That's massive! Michael de Turk, and he'll take a number with him. That's massive for Timothy Reed as well. He was bump drafting on the straight, and more! Oh. It's like just putting them into the blender. My goodness, what a massive accident!
That is carnage at its biggest. I mean, they say there's the big one at Daytona. We've just had the big one at Le Mans, and Ross Banfield now leads. Pauli Partanen right in his slipstream, and there is Kimmo Villiakainen for company. 2's company, 3's the crowd here, Jake.
Well, it was all about Pauli trying to bump draft on the back stretch. He caught it wrong, trying to get it sorted, and de Turk was turned across the nose on the brakes into Mulsanne, the coldest brakes in the world, as they now run through side by side still, and attack now on the charge back to Indianapolis. Now past the golf course on the left-hand side, but wowee, what more do you want? And they can see Freckleton dropping the places then as he runs wide off the corner. Pauli fighting back over 300 kilometers an hour. It's too wide. They take either side of the road. Where do you go with your Villiakainen? Where do you go with your 4th position right now and your JD Rodriguez?
Yeah, and also big drama in the F2 side of things. Ryan Turcotte, one of the 7 drivers eliminated. Philipp Kuhnhardt now up to P6. He's a little bit further away from Gernot Fritzsche, but this is a quintet at the front of the field as we really had drama in that opening lap out of 11, and I did not expect for it to be a domino rally at the first third mark of the Mulsanne Straight.
Well, it just goes to show you have to keep your wits about you each and every single time you are out here and racing. Into the Porsche curves then. They go for the first time, and Pauli Partonen continues to stay on the back of the Williams-inspired car in front of him of Ross Banfield. Right now, Villakainen, then Rodriguez, then Gernot Fritzsche in 5th. Philipp Kuhnhardt with the Michael Schumacher helmet is there in 6th. Ricardo Ruiz has had a fantastic start. He's up to 7th. He's gained 4 spots in the opening going, so you're getting a lot of drivers trying to keep themselves out of trouble the best way that they can. But now through the final chicanes they'll go once more. Keep an eye on these final chicanes on the final lap, because if you find a slowdown penalty here on the final lap of the race, it's an instant 40 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the GSRC replay. Now, here is when everything goes horribly wrong for our race leader, Michael de Turk. As you can see, he's being bump drafted along. And then there's going to be the slightest touch, and then all of a sudden, de Turk spins, and it causes chaos and calamity behind.
Yeah, and comes back across the circuit, and driver after driver, it's like just running through. It's lemmings off the cliff, effectively, as everyone tries to scamper about and avoid contact. There's the big hit from the back. The Mountain Dew car ultimately finds them some trouble. One of those McLaren-style cars goes upside down and actually makes massive contact. And it's an instant like this that makes you so grateful for the Halo system.
Yes, indeed, and thank goodness that, at least these cars can be brought back to pit lane. But as Jake rightly said at the top of the show, there's no spare car. Once your cards have been dealt, like we saw with those 7 drivers that were eliminated, well, that's all she wrote. Make that 8 cars in total.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you how tough the racing is as we watch Ricardo Ruiz side by side with JB Masada, and they fight in front of them on that next group. Villakainen losing out as Gernot Fritzsche moves on through. JD Rodriguez now starting to try and find that progress. They've allowed the top 2 here to break away, and the straight is so long, you can make a move at the top end of the straight by the stadium there, which houses Le Mans Racing 92, the football club, and also the Le Mans Rugby Union team as well. And you get down to the end of the chicane here, you're basically running from Autobahn or motorway or freeway junction to freeway junction, which is where this roundabout is at the end, and you could lose that place straight back again if you're not too careful. That's why JD Rodriguez now finds himself in control. This group has to work together to chase down Banfield and Partonen, who are not battling each other, they're just allowing each other the room. 1.8 seconds, they are just out of drafting range.
Yeah, Kimmo Villakainen's got Philipp Kuhnhardt, the second place driver in the F2 standings. They're going wheel to wheel, but then it's going to be heading into Indianapolis and then into the next left. You've got to be hard on the brakes, you've got to be committed, keep the car in a straight line, and then rotate. Don't overcommit.
Yeah, and that overcommittal is something that we see so often as Olivier Verhagen goes side by side with Nick Thyssen and can't quite find it. Gabri Martinez is on the back in the number 12 car, has gained 4. Great start for Radoslav Zhukovsky. He's up 7, up 8 spaces off the opening lap. Daniel Gallis is one of those drivers who's really improved, but we have lost in the opening lap of the race Ryan Turcotte, Andre Kalinescu, Kevin Parrish, Javier Mosquera, who was in the Persona 3 car. So ultimately he found troubles as Masada gets very close to the walls they're going through. Timothy Reed, Michael de Turk, Peter Konechny and Pat Labrosse all out on the opening lap of this race. Here comes Philipp Kuhnhardt starting to search now, looking for 4th position. Now, each and every point he can get is going to be massive, because the points that they've been playing with in the F2 Championship have been minimal. This would be a seismic shift if you could get up to 4th position or even sneak a podium.
Yeah, and that is going to mean that Ryan Turcotte's going to have to fight tooth and nail in the final round next week of the season, and it's going to come down to the wire for the F2 title. But this has really given advantage point to Philipp Kuhnhardt at this moment. We've run on board with Nick Thyssen, who's closing in on Ricardo Ruiz, with JB Masada just in front. So these three drivers. They are really, really going hammer and tongs, going through into the Dunlop curves and then heading into Tetra Rouge before we then go back onto that long straight. You can just see how much work Nick Thyssen is putting in behind the wheel. Minimal adjustments here coming out of Tetra Rouge, and now it's foot to the floor, 4 to the floor here, or 5 to the floor with these 5-speed Lotus 79s.
Kainen's got a slow down penalty here on the back stretch, and that's going to drop him out of the leading group. They're in 6th position. He's going to need to do some work to make sure that slow down penalty's there, but Thyssen closes the gap, thinks about where he wants to go. You don't want to go to the outside here. This is a crowned road along the Mulsanne, which means that the middle of the road is the place least used, which means you get the most grip and downforce running in the middle. But left and right, if you find yourself out in the weeds, the dirty side of the circuit is also the bumpiest part of the circuit. And you know what? Here comes the look behind from Ricardo Ruiz, who's going to pick his pocket trying to find the passes there on JB Masada. 3 wide behind, but for the moment, 2 wide. It goes here in this group. Kunhardt just waiting on Fritsch and Rodriguez, the leading duo. They're gone. That's pretty much a case of they'll race each other for the victory here. But for third, here comes the scraps. They go down in towards Mulsanne corner itself. And again, JD Rodriguez gets the move.
Good strategic driving here from Philip Kunhardt as, oh, well, that's a little bit of a wobble coming out of Mulsanne corner. I think that was JB Masada who's now behind Ruiz and Thyssen, who are now squabbling over 7th position. But Pauli Partanen to the outside of Ross Banfield. Is the Finn going to fly around the outside? He's going to give it a go, but Banfield dive bombs through in towards Indianapolis and Arnage and retains the lead for the meantime. Great stuff.
That's fantastic by Ross Banfield. He was on the ragged edge trying to hold that place, and he took that corner with confidence, knowing that he had the inside through the small kink right, meant that he gave himself all the room to attack. In that group behind, it's now Rodriguez who is leading, going on to that run to Indianapolis. He's now on the back of that group, behind Kunhardt, behind Cherno Fritsch, but Pauli is definitely sensing that he's got pace, and look at a dirty air effect come into play through the Porsche curves as they now run through the Michelin section. Massive wiggle as he goes through, now back to 7/10 of a second. Now there's a lot that makes this car very difficult to pass with. This is one of the forefather cars, so to speak, when it comes to the modern Formula One car by the use of ground effect.
Yeah, they've just passed the Circuit Alain Prost for the 24 hours of karting in the Le Mans International Karting Circuit, heading in to now the last couple of chicanes, including the Ford chicane as well. Philip Kunhardt now is up to 4th and is challenging Gunnar Fritsch for an overall top split podium. He is looking feisty as the number 19.
One with a slowdown. Cherno Fritsch serves it, but he'll drop the play. So Philip Kunhardt now is up into 3rd position with the Niki Lauda style Ferrari or Clay Regazzoni. Choose whichever drive you want of that era. But with the Michael Schumacher helmet on, he's now 3rd, and he is making hay while this sun shines. This is his circuit, and he knows it. And there's an important thing about this F2 championship. It's when you start the season, how many championship points do, or how much iRacing do you have? It's normally about 3,000 limit, I believe it is, that says, are you F1 or F2?
Yeah, Philip Kunhardt now pulling away to about 7/10 of a second ahead of Gunnar Fritsch, who's being chased down by the number 13 of JD Rodriguez as they go back onto the long straightaway, 5th gear, full throttle. This is where you've really got to be composed. You've got to keep it calm. And that's exactly what we saw last lap around by Philip Kunhardt, Jake. He was methodical, he was strategic. He went, okay, where's the best place I can put myself? Where can I stick my nose in so I don't trouble the 2 in front and see what happens? And then Gunnar Fritsch gets that unfortunate slowdown.
It happens, but look at this long straight and how they start clawing it back. Cherno Fritsch just blasting by on the left-hand side, and there's not much that Philip Kunhardt can do except fall back into line and try and get himself through. We are going to take this chance, though, because we've got a very, I would say, sore and weary Michael de Turk, who's waiting to have a little chat with us here at the moment, so we'll bring him in right now. Michael, there's no words that can really describe what happened for you at the front. A bump draft gone wrong, and you always have to worry about that when there's no chicanes here.
Yeah, it's kind of the standard here. Everybody tries to get in line and push the next guy and keep the speed up, Talladega style. And sometimes you bake and sometimes you get shaked.
Well, you got shaken, and not only did you get shaken, you had six people who came along with you in sympathy. So a massive incident that's opened up the front of this field. Do you feel like with all the work that you've done, the pace that you've had over the course of this week, do you feel like that's a fair assessment of what your race meeting was supposed to be?
I mean, I always find that low downforce tracks are really challenging. Le Mans is, it's Le Mans. It's difficult for so many different reasons. And, obviously I don't want to crash, and you don't want to see anybody else in the field crash, as we're looking at what I think Nick Deason and Kimmo here going too wide. See if Kimmo sends it down into Indianapolis. No, he's being smart about it. He's not being a real Finn. Come on. Oh, huge accident in the background. Wow.
Yeah, we've just seen Ricardo Ruiz have a massive accident which has ended his race. He's lost the rear right tyre, and that is him out over at Indianapolis. But one more question before we let you go here, Michael. It has been a tough season. You've been right up there near the pointy end, and I think the pole position here today, or being up near the pole position, sorry, I should say, definitely proved that you've got pace to burn. What are you looking at in next season, and how are you looking to challenge the next lot of drivers to get past Pauli and up to the likes of Andreas Henkel?
That's very complimentary. Thanks, Jake. That will not happen. But next week's Long Beach, it's pretty much my favorite track on the schedule. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm definitely going to try to do as many of the full-length 100% vintage Grand Prix tour races that iRacing is doing over the coming year. I think that's going to be really fun. I hope a lot of people participate in that. I know Paulie and I are interested in that. I'm sure a bunch of other people are. So, I think that'll be fun. And, today, a racing incident, these things happen. Obviously I feel bad that I died. I feel bad that Paulie is damaged. I feel bad that like a whole bunch of other people got taken out at the beginning there. I know Tim Reed had great pace, but it's a racing incident. These things happen. I'm not mad.
Well, we look forward to seeing you over in 1 week's time at Long Beach. Michael de Turk there joining us for the moment. And Alex, you really get the sense there of a driver who's a little bit down on his luck after an incident like that. He'd love to be out there racing. He knows how important it is to be out there and scoring these points over and over. That's why he wants to do the brand new announced tour, which is put in, which runs very similar to the old school 1978 Formula One Championship. But when you've got these drivers right now attacking on these straights, this is what you'd like, that he would have liked on this opening lap. Just drivers going too wide and then finding the angle to go three wide if it would work for them. That's the style of battling. This one, for third, fourth, and fifth, he would have wanted on the opening lap.
Oh, definitely, 100%. He would have loved every single second of just either being behind the two drivers in front, as once again we're seeing Gunnar Fritzsche versus Philipp Coulthard. There's JD Rodriguez holding off, just waiting, and Coulthard round the outside of all places at Mulsanne. That was inspired by the number 19. He's back into third. We've got the GSRC replay coming up with what happened with Ricardo Ruiz. Now he's going to... Now that is not how the car's meant to go there, I'm afraid. He made contact with the right rear wheel of the car alongside, and then bang, well, it was more than the wheel. The car was completely obliterated into smithereens.
Yeah, that was JB Masada who he made the contact with. Masada coming across the line with Ruiz so narrow on the inside, and it's so easy to do because you get tunnel vision going into Indianapolis corner, Alex. You're just looking around at that section of track going, can I make the corner? And you don't even think about the car on the outside.
Yeah, completely agree there, Jake. You've got that tunnel vision, and it's just more the case of you're concentrating on what you're trying to do. But with this circuit here at Le Mans, you've just got to, your eyes on a swivel have to be on a completely different level to every single circuit that we've had so far in the previous 10 rounds. And then Long Beach is going to be a completely different situation next week for the series finale. But then we've got Gabri Martinez having a bit of a battle here with JB Masada and Olivier Verhagen. So this is a good scrap here for 8th place. Loving the livery on Gabri Martinez's Lotus 79. Kind of reminds me of the Alex Zanardi art car that him and Bruno Spengler and Timo Glock ran at the 24 Hours of Spa a few years ago in the BMW Z4 GT3, if I remember correctly.
Well, this has got superhero vibes all over it, straight out of a comic book strip. And you look at Gabriel Martinez, and I think he wins Livery of the Year hands down on what he's got available to him here as we're over the halfway stage of this race. Ross Banfield, your race leader, half a second the margin, a change for the race lead just comes in, a mistake through the Tetra Rouge S's coming down the Chapelle, and that means that Banfield now falls to second. Pauli Partanen now leads, but we note as well with Pauli pushing behind, he's got damage to the front right of his front wing, so that's going to be crucial, how he can go in a straight line. Ross Banfield can reel him in hand over fist.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, Ross, at times we were seeing an advantage north of half a second, 6/10, and look at the closing rate of speed. Ross Banfield to the outside, powers past Pauli Partanen like the finish standing still. Of course, obviously Michael alluded to the fact that there was damage on Pauli's car because he was the one that was right behind Michael at the point of impact through the bump drafting situation that went wrong. But Pauli Partanen looking for the inside line. He's giving as good as he can get here, can the Finn.
They're interlocking wheels almost. Pauli Partanen is right now. He's fighting with everything that his Ford DFV Cosworth engine can give him. He knows that slightly quicker in a straight line here is Ross Banfield because he hits the air and that turbulence and he just can't find that extra rotation. This is what's going to make Pauli's life so difficult because this is the struggle. He's going to have to try and do it somewhere unconventional if he wants to make the pass. And speaking of which, Philip Kuhnhart now has the inside but falls back into line. I think right now this is all about jostling, finding your space before the end of these races. Martinez going through but running deep. So back comes JB Mastada.
Oh, they all clash of sidewalls between the pair on the run out of Mulsanne corner as they're going to be heading down into Indianapolis and Arnage. Again, this battle for, 8th, 9th and 10th. You cannot pick which one of these three drivers, when we hit the checkered flag in a matter of laps, is going to steal that little bit of pride heading into Long Beach next week. And still, Martinez to the outside, Masada to the inside, hard on the brakes. Masada has enough momentum to carry the speed through at Indy and get the job done, whereas Martinez kicks up the dirt with the right rear. That's going to bring a little bit of dust onto the track for other drivers behind.
But still, the battles continue each and every place. Now, here is Radoslav Zhukovsky. He has got Xavier Sanchez, who's gone through on this lap. So from the back of this group to the front, you've also got Marko Televsky, who is on the back in a number 17 machine. So movement across this group. But this is a group that is miles behind the next driver of Marco Ross, who's there in front by 8 seconds last time over the line. So this is all about how this pack has opened out. And when you are so reliant on the slipstream, you can see how much of a difference it makes. This group already 8.5 seconds off the race lead. Freacher really attacking through the Ford chicane onto the rear Cordemont to the Bugatti circuit, which you go through and is not here on iRacing because quite famously Papyrus Development left out the Bugatti circuit from Grand Prix Legends because they really absolutely hated the circuit, and that's maybe one of the reasons why we haven't seen it so far when it comes to iRacing. But diving down the hill, Pauli Partanen looks and searches and sees Ross Banfield in front here with 5 laps to go. And how he makes the move, I think, is going to be the question that he's looking at right now. He knows he can get close. He knows he can pull alongside. He just knows he can't out-drag him on the straights anymore.
Yeah, it's just about Pauli Partanen picking his moment, and Ross Banfield in the Williams-Renault Cannon Tribute livery band up front now has a nigh on half a second advantage. But even with that damage to the right side of the front wing, Partanen still has a little bit of a toe, but you can see there's a little bit of correction every time that Banfield moves across. Partanen tries to keep within that slipstream, but because he's working that wheel by millimetre increments there, folks, he is dealing with that dirty aero wash from the car in front, but still is able to keep the car steady enough to close in that gap. It's now under 1/10 and a half. As once again, Partanen now waiting. He's going to bump drop. Where's he going to put it? He's going to go to the outside. He's going to try and take advantage of the side drop. But as you rightly said, Jake, he cannot use that because that front wing is severely compromised on the right front. But now, into Mulsanne corner, is he going to throw the Hail Mary round the outside? He's going to give it a go, give it a shot there, wheel to wheel, but still, Banfield, because of the fact his car's not compromised in terms of aero inefficiency, he gets the traction down better.
Yeah, and now look at this. Here's where the attack comes again. Another bout of slipstream from Pauli Partanen. He sits and waits for it and looks for it, but he's on the wrong side of the road through these right-handers. This is what's going to give the advantage to Ross Banfield, and the aggressive factor. Again, Pauli falls back into line. He's not ready to commit to diving down the inside of Indianapolis, which I think is a wise strategy at this phase of the race. He doesn't want to compromise it outright overall, but he's proving that he is at least equal to Ross Banfield in each and every single way here. He's searching and searching and searching, not quite showing all the cards he has available to him, but Ross Banfield is just doing enough at the moment, and that's all he needs to do, knowing he's up against a damaged competitor along with him. Just do enough, make it difficult for that pass, don't make it impossible.
Yeah, and also the big thing is that if I've got a feeling here, really, as we go through Porsche curves now into karting, you know, Banfield really able, through full aerodynamic capabilities on his Lotus 79, is able to pull away, and that gap at one point was less than a 1/10.5. It's now blossomed to nearly a 6.5 of a second advantage. But if I'm going to be completely honest here, Jake, I think it's going to be a case that Pauli Partanen may leave it until the very last lap to go and throw that Hail Mary at Ross Banfield and see how it pans out. That's possibly his only opportunity. If he can keep with him, he's giving himself every possibility that it might work in his favour, but you never know.
Or he might just go around the outside here of the Dunlop S's, but he's decided against it. And actually, the way that he had to go, he's at very heavy risk of dropping a second here. So he's got to really pedal over this lap. In fact, he has just dropped the second. So that's going to be worth keeping in mind. Kunhart continuing to keep himself close with JD Rodriguez and Jerno Frietscher. Then it's another group of two, Nick Thyssen and Kimmo Villiakainen. Great run today from Nick Thyssen. He's up 6 spots in terms of what he's done. Then it's Masada, Verhagen, and also for Gabriel Martinez, who finds himself there. Marco Ross and Dylan Freckleton trying to stay on it, but struggling to do so. The groups all forming themselves, and they know that the way that this race has panned out, how chaotic it was early on, they've got no other alternatives except they've got to stay with what they've got. We focus here with Kunhart, who is now clawing that gap down, trying to find it, moving across to the left-hand side to make that move. We might just see what is necessary. And now here's something else that you've got to note here on this straight. Partanen's not got as much slipstream, and as such, he's down 4 kilometers an hour on the straight.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show that you need all your weapons sharp, as the infamous words from Tom Christensen back at Truth, if anyone might remember the Truth in 24 documentary chronicling Audi Sport, when they had to, well, I think it was Truth in 24 2, when he was an advisor to the Audi Sport team. It's basically, tyres have got to be good, aero's got to be good, no compromisation, as again through into Mulsanne corner. It's musical chairs on, throwing it round the outside between Gernot Frietscher and Philip Kunhart. Kimmo Villiakainen battling away with Nick Thyssen. We then go back to the battle. It's now Martinez, who nearly has Verhagen to his, well, he had him to his left. Verhagen nearly could have accidentally turned in on Martinez, and that's allowed JB Masada to get back through into 9th and close in on the number 12. And Masada's going to go to the outside on this particular occasion. Will he get the additional side draft? It's looking very touchy, but as you rightly said here, coming into Indy, coming into Arnage, it's going to be Martinez going nigh on sidewall to sidewall with Masada. Martinez back through, but Masada isn't done yet. Verhagen's not out of this battle for P8 by a long shot as Masada spins it.
Just like that, Masada was threatening to try and find moves, and the moment he started getting twitchy, knowing he had to be aggressive on the brakes for the car behind, there goes the rears looping, and JB Masada loses out to Dylan Freckleton and Marco Ross as well. So quickly, the places go. There is Kimmo Villiakainen, and look at the dirty air going through here. Nick Thyssen able to build a margin that says, I can just break away, in his Brabham-inspired livery there that he's got. So Thyssen is doing everything everything that he needs to do to keep Villiers-Kynan back, but this is going to be a patience ploy between now and the end of this race. You can guarantee, and off the road's gone JD Rodriguez through the final chicane, so he's gone off, and I think that was just in avoidance of running into the back of Gernot Fritzsche. I think he just completely missed his braking point.
Yeah, it's so easy to do at the Ford chicane. And looking at the intermediate splits between our two leaders at the moment, the gap's now 1.7 seconds. Ross Banfield was a second quicker in the opening sector, and that is quite crucial. Parton managed to close the gap to a 10th down in sector 2, but more importantly, he was 2/10 quicker as we go to the replay here. So, yeah, Gernot Fritzsche having JD Rodriguez right on his tail into the final couple of chicanes. And Rodriguez just goes straight on.
Yeah, he's just had to completely abandon the corner as he went through, and he's very lucky, actually, in the way that he went through. If he'd had to have continued on into the pits, he may have even got an unsafe pit entry with how he had to deal with it. But look at that gap now, out to 2.1 seconds, and Pauli Partanen, if ever there was a moment that you just look at how the race has gone, this is the moment that you just wave the white flag and say, unless Ron Banfield bins this car, I have no way of catching him anymore at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same story that Pauli Partanen had about round 9 of the Red Bull Ring. You know, he suffered a little bit of damage early in the race, and that compromised his run. You know, trying to close in on Henkel, who started pulling away as the laps counted down. And, you know, you're seeing 320 kilometers an hour indicated. That's 200 miles an hour, folks. There's Philipp Coulthard, who now has started to pull away from Gernot Fritzsche to the tune of 1.2 seconds. The F2 title is going to go down to the wire next week at Long Beach. And Ryan Turcotte is going to be saying, well, if only I hadn't had that drama on lap 1, but then you've got to feel sorry for everybody else that had problems. But a mistake there from Gabri Martinez. Olivier Verhagen is now going to the outside again, and this is really, really going to cause problems for the 22, but he's nigh on wheel to wheel with Martinez. Is he going to pull ahead? He's slightly in front by about a few thousandths of a second, but he's going to be to the outside here at Indian and Arnage, and Martinez again just takes that nice, tight, sweeping right-hand line and keeps it calm.
Yeah, he just does what he needs to. He just holds that line steady and makes sure that, well, if you're alongside, it's not going to work. You need to get some overlap in front of me for me to even begin to consider backing out. And actually off the exit of Indianapolis is going to be important because of the iRacing brand new system that they've got for dragging out the gravel onto the circuit. It's going to make it very slippery in what is already very trimmed out low downforce cars on the exit of these slower speed corners. So you're going to have to be very careful on how you put the right foot down. There's Zukowski once again. This time, though, he's up against Marko Televsky for position. So Televsky in 14th, Zukowski in 15th, but well covered into the Porsche curves, and just try and maintain that margin the best you can, because you got the big karting right, which comes along after that. And there's Daniel Gallis back in 16th. Plus 10, though, for the day. The second biggest gainer behind Xavier Sanchez out there at the moment. But plus 10, you take all day long.
Yeah, and you'll take that every single day to the bank. And more to the point here, looking at the lap times between Ross Banfield and Pauli Partanen. Partanen on that last tour did a 3:18.926. Banfield 3:17.659. That is a big chunk of time that Pauli Partanen is now losing. Once he dropped back behind Banfield, it was pretty much game over. It was a case of, well, Pauli hasn't got the slipstream assistance that he needed. Despite that right front wing damage, he was there, but it was just a case of, okay, what needs to happen in the eyes of Ross Banfield for me to not have to worry about Pauli Partanen? And that gap is consistently expanding. 1.3 seconds down was Pauli Partanen in the opening sector on the last lap.
Yeah, and I think that tells you all you need to know, because over the course of the lap, he was down last lap 1.3 seconds. So if he's losing that 1.3 seconds in the opening sector, It's clear that he can hold him everywhere else around the lap. It's just that he's losing it outright now, and he's got no real argument or answer to try and get back to Ross Banfield, who's played this game perfectly like a fiddle. He's kept himself out of trouble each and every way that he's managed to do so. And quite simply put, there are no alternatives out there for how he can go and get himself back. He's just reliant on Ross Banfield dropping it off the road, and he doesn't do that very often. Rodriguez back through then on Gernot Fritsch. Philipp Kuhnhart's just checked out. Look at that, 2.5 seconds.
That's music to Philipp Kuhnhardt's ears right about now, because, you know, we've got 2 to go, including this one. Kuhnhardt has just done a sterling performance, qualified 7th, 10 places ahead of chief rival Ryan Turcotte, who unfortunately was one of the drivers caught up in the Domino rally carnage that we had on the opening lap. And it could have been a very, very different story. If Turcotte had the pace with him, not in qualifying but in race trim, we could have seen a very, very different side to the story. But Verhagen and Martinez again through Indianapolis and heading into Arage once again. Well, Verhagen is keeping it to the outside this time. Is he going to try? Oh, he's done exactly what JB Massada did just a couple of laps ago. Just the back end over rotates, and that's all she wrote there for Olivier Verhagen from Belgium.
Yep, so that puts Freckleton through, Massada through, Ross is through, Gabri Martinez holds on again, and every single time it's everyone trying to hold their station and get what they need. They head towards the final lap, being led by Ross Banfield right now from the Virginias in the United States of America, and a leading margin with another fastest lap, a 3:17.4 of 3.7 as he goes on and tackles the Dunlop chicane.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Banfield, he qualified at the sharper end of the field, but managed to keep his nose clean, keep out of harm's way. He was actually behind Michael de Turk and Pauli Partanen on that back straight for the first out of 11 laps, and he's just absolutely timed it to perfection. But he did have to fight a little bit with Pauli Partanen. Damaged vehicle and all, the number 2 from Finland really kept Banfield very, very honest. So the man based out of the Virginias has done a stellar job. And what's more, he's going to be absolutely laughing like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, saying, you know what? Irrespective of the fact that Pauli Partanen has given me a bit of a fright, I've come through it smelling of roses.
Well, he was the only one of those front 3 on the opening lap not to get caught up. And that was a big key point of his race, knowing that Pauli Partanen had the contact with Michael de Turk, had the damage that he had to navigate through at the rest of the race, and you feel that you make your own luck in a race like that, and that was pretty much the case. Still on, though, for 4th position, Gernot Fritsch looking to try and run down JD Rodriguez here as they now run over towards that second chicane, which will come up from the left-hand side. They'll go straight through it and then look to attack through this final run. They have a small crest here, and then they drop down the hill once more, knowing they've got the big braking zone at Mulsanne, knowing they've just got to hold their marks, and this is where JD Rodriguez is going to give the biggest amount of resistance he possibly can. On the brakes they go. Fritsch incredibly early, trying to roll into the corner to attack off the exit, and he plays him like a fiddle, and to his tune you will dance. Rodriguez falls back into line, but now he'll get another chance here with the slipstream to attack straight back. They know the podium's out of reach. They know it's now all about trying to get that launch, and here comes Rodriguez back through the first of 2 kinks. They now head to Indianapolis. Rodriguez half a car length clear, almost a full car length at turn-in. Now can he get it slowed down? He's all the way over on the right, left-hand side. Can he get it slowed? He'll now look at Arnage. Again, Fritsch picks his pocket. Once you should learn, twice you should try. And around the outside of Arnage, the slowest corner on the track, he still holds his margin. Brilliant stuff there by Gernot in your top right corner, going through the Porsche curves for the final time is Ross Banfield, who knew that here in Pays de la Loire. It is his playground that he works with. Another search comes down the inside from Rodriguez, which is not there, but coming out of Maison Blanche with just the Ford chicane and the rear Cordemont to go. Sit back and watch a masterpiece in action. Ross Banfield took Pauli Partanen and said, that is mine, and you will never stop me. Ross Banfield takes victory at Le Mans.
And he's going to win by a comfortable margin. And on the final lap of the race, the new fastest lap, Pauli Partanen, another top three finish, not quite the W. Third, Philipp Coulthard brings the fight to Ryan Turcotte in the F2 standings at the season finale at Long Beach. Gernot Fritzsche takes fourth, despite the best efforts of JD Rodriguez. And look how close Nick Thyssen was. Oh, but a drama there for Gabri Martinez coming out of the Ford chicane.
He might get 40 for that unless he served it just before the line. And Marco Ross, I think, did not get that place. So Martinez held as he went over the line. I think Marco Ross was trying to redress the position, saying, I didn't get that one cleanly. And he had to do so quickly because JB Masada was there to mop up anything if those games came into play. Freckleton crashed it, by the way, coming over the line. But I think that is going to rule that. So ultimately, everybody then finding themselves the opportunity. 17 finishers here today out of a possible 26. So 9 retirees from this one. But Ross Banfield dominating proceedings late as he found the victory in 36 minutes and 26 seconds. His margin of victory is 7 seconds over Pauli Partanen, with Philipp Coulthard taking massive points in the F2 Championship by finishing off in third. It would then be Gernot Fritzsche who would finish off fourth ahead of JD Rodriguez going to the line, and Nick Thyssen having a great race today, gaining 6 and finishing in P6. It was then Kimmo Villiakainen who had slowdown issues throughout today. That dropped him back to 7th, with Gabri Martinez in 8th position. Marco Ross would be 9th, and JB Masada would be the driver who would round out the top 10. Following that, it would be Dylan Freckleton in 11th, ahead of Olivier Verhagen, who was there in 12th, doing a good job actually over the course of his race, despite the drop of 3 spaces, 1 spin being the trouble. The biggest mover and shaker being Javier Sanchez, Heike getting himself up into 13th, with Marco Televsky there in 14th position. Behind him was Radoslav Zhukovsky, Daniel Gallis, and Connor Tolman, the last car on the leading lap. 7 laps down would be Ricardo Ruiz with his big incident over at Indianapolis, and then all the other cars caught up in lap 1 incidents. Ryan Turcotte, the F2 Championship leader, Andrei Kaliniescu, likes of Kevin Parrish, Javier Mosquera, Timothy Reed, Michael de Turk from the front, the catalyst there of all of it, Peter Konechny and Pat Labrosse, all out of the race in the early phases going forward. We're going to jump in with a couple of interviews. First and foremost, I think we're going to try and get our winner in, but he's just deafened on us here, but we get a chance to right now. Ross Banfield joins us here with the opportunity to chat. And Ross, that's probably going to be the easiest end to a Le Mans race you've had in a while, but the importance of it being damage versus no damage due to lap 1.
Yeah, it was. I could tell he had a little bit of damage, but I also had that set absolutely maxed out. So it was designed only to be good in the straights and then in the Porsche curves, and that was it. So I was watching him close the gap every time I would go through the Ford chicane. I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough one. But once I finally shook the draft, I knew I was able to pull away from there.
Talk us through your perspective then of racing this season, because you seem to have your hand in a lot of different pies when it comes to iRacing. You do love a lot of great racing out there. So what is it about this Lotus 79 that's caught your attention?
Well, first off, the engine just sounds incredible. So it's a joy to drive. I really like the new changes with the tire model. It allows you to basically get a lot of slip angle into it without spinning out like you would in the previous years. And just the racing here seems to be cleaner than some of the other official series I do. So I always come back here knowing that, I'm going to have a fair, clean race each time.
So 1 round left to go, and we've noticed you there with the Super Mario helmet there as you've been piloting around. Is it going to be a case of more of the same for you when it comes to Long Beach, or is your princess going to be in another castle?
Definitely another castle. Long Beach is the one that I prefer to skip. just because of the general mayhem that can occur if you're not in pole.
Well, we're not going to see you next time, but a great way to end your season then. A victory out here at Le Mans. Ross Banfield joining us then, picking up overall victory. So that was Ross Banfield. I believe Alex has taken a wander down through the back paddocks, and he's found himself with Pauli Partanen.
Well, Pauli, thank you for joining us. So close. You were really, really pushing Ross despite the damage after the bump drafting behind Michael de Turk. What was your strategy just going in, just saying, you know what, I've got to go a little bit harder into these corners here at Le Mans?
Well, I was beating myself whole race because of the first lap thing. Like, oh, I'm so sorry, I got so big mess that I didn't really care about the race after that. But yeah, I was trying to just stay behind Banfield. I knew that if I lost the draft, it'd be over easily. I had so much damage that I lost like a second on the back straight, but I tried my everything, but of course it was not enough. And sorry for everyone that was caught up at the first lap. That was the stupidest thing I have ever done in 5 years in this Lotus 79, so I'm sorry to everyone.
I have to say kudos to you, Pauli, for admitting your transparency there with that back straight incident. But still, I mean, we were noticing that you were losing about 4 to 5 kilometers an hour. I take it you were on the lowest downforce trim possible just to try and keep yourself in that fight. But it was like when we saw you against Andreas Henkel at the Red Bull Ring. You suffered a little bit of damage. You were trying to do a bit of damage limitation, but still to come away with second place at such an iconic circuit is something that is truly rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always good to finish P2, no doubt about that. I was hoping that I will finish with Michael. He's my super close friend. We was on the voice chat during the race, so I just feel bad for Michael and everyone else. So I cannot be really happy with this, but second is a second. Yeah, you're right.
But of course, season finale Long Beach next week. You've got to try and do everything you can, because obviously, you know, the standings have been pretty close during this season, and you've got a really good opportunity just to solidify that second place in the championship. What's your optimistic thoughts on it?
I try to not kill anyone next race. That's the plan.
Well, Pauli Partanen, thank you so much for joining us in the post-race interview show, and good luck at the season finale at Long Beach next week.
Thank you guys, and thank you for the broadcast. It will be a pleasure to see you anyway. Thank you.
So there we have it. Pauli Partanen there joining us and picking up the result of second. We are going to get the chance, though, very quickly to jump in with Jarno Fritzsche, who managed to pick up a result of fourth place here today. Jarno, you were up there with the main groups trying to navigate through. It was carnage on the opening lap. We're just seeing your perspective right now on screen. But you found yourself for the majority of the race with JD Rodriguez and Philip Kunhardt.
Hi, Jake. Yeah, this is complicated racing here because everyone's so closely matched together, and yeah, there's just draft going on. Yeah, really complicated to be in a good track position and not to make a stupid mistake. On the other hand, I made a couple of stupid mistakes. I think I had 3 slowdowns during the race, so that made it worse for me.
Well, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles, but for you, up against a driver who was doing so well in the F2 Championship, now picking up massive points by finishing third ahead of you, battling with JD behind you all the way to the final lap. How do you take any confidence that you've gained from this race or experience from this race and translate it to Long Beach?
I don't think that's possible because it's completely opposite track. So Le Mans is really special with this car. It's racing with crazy ride heights with no downforce at all. Long Beach is the exact opposite. And yeah, the bad point is that Long Beach is not one of my good tracks. So I always struggle there. So I'm not really confident for next week.
Well, we're going to try and instill as much luck as we possibly can for you, Journo, when it comes to next week by that regard. Joining us then from 4th position, Journo Freacher, ladies and gentlemen. But in terms of what we have been able to achieve here today with the Global SimRacing Channel, that is going to bring the curtain down here with us as part of a Genesis Extreme production. I want to give a massive thanks to the entire team who's brought the show together, from Alex Goldschmidt, Daniel Costello, and from Dougie Beard. You can catch all of the amazing action with us here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Do all the cool things, the like, the share, the subscribe, ring the bell for more notifications, all of that to make sure you are not missing out for what's coming along in 1 week's time when we head to Long Beach for the final round of your Sunday Grand Prix series. Your classic Lotuses are going to be on the streets as they were once upon a time. I simply can't wait to see that coming into play, and I'm sure you will not either. There's so much amazing action that's coming along very soon, including the likes of the Porsche Owners Club, which is going to be back on with the Monday night or Tuesday morning, depending on where you are in the world, from Imola. And you've got Grand Prix Legends over, of course, on a super Saturday's worth of action with the Nürburgring, and of course with what we have seen earlier on over the course. So make sure you catch all of those for what we have already managed to do. But Ross Banfield at his brilliant best here today with a car so slippery that nobody could catch him. He ran through the net and he waltzed away to a victory here today. In terms of, though, what goes on next week, it's complete change and nobody seems to have a lot of confidence. Long Beach is striking fear into the hearts of all drivers, and for a championship finale round, it's one you definitely want to tune in with us with on the Global SimRacing Channel.